Hello, today we are in Vallejo and we are taking bees out of an eave that's right up here on this, this A-frame roof. And it's a little bit of a tricky access. There's not a lot of room in the side yard. I'll show you there's a steep, small like roof off the first floor that's not able to, can't stand on it. And the bees are located up in this eave space up here, right along the edge there. So I'll take you over there and give you a shot of it. I have some makeshift scaffolding in place. The bees are coming in and out right up there. And I'll put the thermal camera on there in a second for you to see it. I got my access ladder, and then with the pitch of this roof, I've got two of my 24-foot extension ladders up there so that I have something to stand on, because the angle of this roof is really steep, too steep for me to stand on. Here you can see where the bees are in that eave. It doesn't look too much like they're going down into that wall. I'm hoping that they're trapped. They're up there in that joist space of the eave. The tricky thing is that the inside of this room, that window right there, is a shower, and that entire shower, that entire wall on the inside is tiled, as well as the ceiling is also tiled. So there's no access to this, without disrupting the tile from inside. So it's all got to be done from the outside through that eave. So as I get up in there, I'm hoping that it doesn't go too far into that joist space, that direction. What looks promising is that when I come over here and I shoot the roof with my thermal camera, a little tricky to see, I only see the heat signature right on the very edge of it, where that little red bullseye is. It's showing it just on the very edge. It doesn't seem like it goes too far into the structure. So I'm hoping that they're contained there, that there's some good blocking in place. So I'm gonna get set up, get this, make sure this scaffolding is all secure for me, and then I'll get up there and start taking off that soffit piece and remove that, and then we'll have access to the hive and we'll get a sense of what's going on there. All right. bees continue up past this last joist space. So I'll drill a small hole and put a scope up there before I pull any more off. All right, let's take a look. Here we are. And it stops at that joist space right there, joist right there. So we're trying to get this set up. So you can see from the temperament of these bees, they're pretty defensive. Usually, you've seen me remove other. If you've seen me remove other colonies, you've seen that a lot of times I can do it without a veil. The bees hardly react to my presence. If they're defensive maybe for the first minute or two, and then they calm down. But these bees, as you can see, are very defensive. If I move my hand, well, earlier when I moved my hand or when I moved the vacuum nozzle, they just, you know, came right for it. So I've knocked the numbers down a bit into the vac. So they're, you know, some of those guard bees or the older bees have already attacked me, and so they're already in the vac. But now I'll start cutting the comb. I got a little setup here, got my water, got my tub, my vac's going. So I'm gonna start cutting some of this comb out and vacuuming these bees, and I'll keep my eye out for the queen, and I'll talk later about what I'm gonna do with this queen and with this colony, given the reaction they had when I first opened them up. All right, so I'll get it set up. Alright, so followed where those bees were coming down. See that little crack, and obviously they have built a bit down here. So this. All right. These are all robber bees coming in. Down here, these are robber bees. Up here, these are our hive bees. So I'm gonna come and I'm gonna do one last little vacuum with these bees. And then the rest of this, I'm gonna scrape out all this and get it all cleaned out. And then we'll get it all packed and cleaned and back together. Alright. What's left are robber bees. We're gonna get those cleaned up and out of here. Alright. I gotta get this cleaned up a bit before all hell breaks loose with these robbers. So cleaning up all the honey that spilled. Everyone's coming. Fighting over stuff. It's cleaned up. These boards back on. Okay. Still got some robbing activity, but everything's back together. It's all cleaned out, packed with insulation, caulked. Any little opening I could see is caulked. This little seam right here, it's like a shadow line there. It's caulked along where the existing hive was, and I think their house painter's gonna come and seal up the rest of it. So it's all out. These robber bees will clean up any little lingering stickiness on the outside. This canopy canvas is coming down, so we don't need to worry about that. That's being replaced. So we're all done. Now I'll just clean up my mess and get those bees situated. That's it. Thank you. I'm just driving back home, back to one of my bee yards with the bees after that removal, and it's all finished up. And I thought I'd say a few things about my plans for those bees. As you saw in the video, the bees were pretty defensive. I'd say highly defensive bees. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to see if the queen is in the vac with the bees. If she is, I'm probably going to replace her. So I'm going to replace her with a different queen and get some different genetics into those bees, because those bees were very defensive right from the beginning, and they stayed defensive throughout the whole removal. So I'll get a new queen in there. The pattern didn't look great in that colony. It was really old comb. The comb wasn't salvageable because it's so old and gnarled, and I also, there was a really high, I think high mite levels in that. I didn't do a wash on them, but I could see a few phoretic mites on bees, and I showed you the deformed wing virus. Once you start seeing that deformed wing virus, that's usually a sign that you have pretty high mite levels. And so I'm gonna put these bees onto new comb, so fresh comb. I won't transfer the brood over because the brood will be where the majority of those mites are. So they'll get new comb, a new queen. I'll feed them up. I'll probably treat them to knock the phoretic mites down on them, and then feed them back some honey, their own honey, which I'll crush and strain. So overall, the removal went well, considering it was a tricky kind of location, and the bees were pretty defensive right from the beginning. I definitely got stung up on my hands. I think you probably saw me laughing about getting stung on the hands a bit there. I probably took, I don't know, 20, 30 stings on the hands, but in a situation like that, I could wear gloves, but then the gloves get all sopping with honey, and it just becomes a huge dexterity issue. So usually, as long as I get those stingers out pretty fast, it's not an issue. So anyway, overall, went pretty smoothly. These bees will get a new queen and a new comb and a fresh start back in one of my bee yards. All right, thank you very much for watching.